Chris.
Hi.
We're having an amazing conversation today, and we're going to be talking about growing the workforce and how we can use the workforce capability framework.
Oh, awesome. Can't wait.
And so while it's valuable and fantastic for organisations to have Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in them, I'm wondering what's it like for them, and what's the load or the burden that then falls on them as sometimes, if not the only Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people in an organisation or one of a very small group. Well, what's that like?
Yes, it can be very it's a wonderful thing to be welcomed so well into an environment, but then what sometimes can happen is that they become, and it might come from a well-meaning place sometimes with other workers, but sometimes that person can become the go-to for anything cultural, anything Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander. They'll oh, so-and-so could deal with that, and we do call that cultural loading, and it's just, loading up a person of another culture, in this case Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander, just loading them up with these small tasks that don't really fall within their job description, but they're actually, they feel sometimes obligated to deal with it, answer it, or address whatever those questions have been. And so sometimes that can sort of start to feel, turn into a little bit of resentment. So sometimes that resentment can build up to the point where they start to sort of want to shy away from people who approach them, but also they feel that they can't just function and do their job. And sometimes they just want to go to work and do their job, and that's it. So it's and one of the biggest things for a service to realise is that Aboriginal person or persons, they aren't responsible for the learnings or the cultural learnings of the whole service or the workforce. That learning, having those cultural learnings that's everyone's responsible for their own learnings. So if they, it could be an honest conversation perhaps in a team meeting where people start to sort of tee up ways that they can either gain those cultural knowledges and perhaps making connections, going out, making their own connections. It's not the Aboriginal person's place to make those connections for the service, because if that Aboriginal person leaves, there's no connections. Yeah. So it's a really good habit for a service to get into, for everybody to take turns making a connection. And NAIDOC's a perfect time for that. You can go to this to many family what do they call them, family fun or family days, and they just you can easily meet elders and people who are working in services, and making those connections that way.
I think that's a really great point. Racism is white person's work, right? It's not the work of, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. The impact of racism is the thing that they're having to deal with every day. We need to do our own work with that, and to, work in our own ignorance. And I 100% agree. It's interesting. So how do you reckon that an organisation or a leadership team could start thinking about setting it up to have that sort of culture? And so that doesn't become a load or a burden for an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander practitioner or a group of them in the organisation. What would need to be put in? What could be put in place at the start before they commence in that role, and ongoing? What would be really, really useful? What would be useful and what wouldn't be useful for somebody in that situation coming into an organisation?
So I think it would need to come from the top down. In those cases, often people look to our leaders in a service or in our workforce as the leaders of most processes and ways of being. So it would actually need to be from the leader, the managers, to have those conversations either at onboarding or make it a standing conversation to be had at team meetings. Also cultural awareness training would be a good start for the whole service, but also in those meetings when you have those as a standing item, always just dropping little gems along the way, giving people the responsibility of, maybe doing an activity, a cultural activity, and they get to the workforce then get to see that it's a shared experience. It's not just down to one person. And, it can be those small activities like going to an Aboriginal art exhibition, or trying some bush tucker food, or, going to maybe a play by an Indigenous playwright, just little things like that, which or could be a show on TV like NITV or SBS. We've had or even Netflix had an amazing array of movies that was timed for NAIDOC. And, some of those opportunities, they don't happen within 9 to 5. They'll often happen out of hours. And if the whole team goes and has that responsibility of experiencing something and then coming back and talking about it at the meeting, they get to see that they can all enjoy it. It's not just up to the Aboriginal staff.
One of the things that we do, and again, like NAIDOC Week, not making sure that doesn't fall on, necessarily on your Aboriginal to consult and see if this is going to be appropriate or not, but they shouldn't have to be organising all of that stuff either. One of the things that we did was a trivia competition, not a competition amongst the teams in the organisation. And it was interesting how much, like the gap in the knowledge and understanding, and even for workers that had been in the organisation for a long time, everyone just sat there kind of their mouths open. How that's 5 minutes ago, and that's what it was like, you know. And it's been very, very interesting, and how little we know.
Yes.
Yeah, opening up those gaps.